Okay, we're going to talk about radio today. I'm going to get into it and we'll finish it up. I hope that you have viewed the movie or are finishing up the movie that I asked you to rent and see. It was a documentary about radio, but mainly a documentary about three very famous people who are associated with the beginnings of radio, um, which makes the point that no one person is usually considered the father of radio or the father of television. Some people do have their favorites, the people they think that really invented something that was absolutely crucial. But as you view this movie, I think you get an understanding of how things are developed in this country, which is that a lot of people are usually working on the same thing at the same time, um, which uh, which makes you wonder, why does that happen? Um, and I've always wondered about that. But if you look at the modes of communication that people have at any given time, there will be something that is missing in that mode of communication, or something that people miss and want in that. Today we have so much convergence, as we've talked about before, so much convergence of media that we want a watch that does everything. We want a watch that not only tells time, which used to be a pretty good reason to have a watch. Now we want a watch that shows movies, that sets up meetings for us, that we can talk to, like Dick Tracy used to talk to his watch, and police officers have things that they hold near them that they speak into. We want a medium that does everything. Uh, don't know if that will ever be the case, but radio is certainly, well, when it comes time to talk about TV, we'll get into what people felt was missing in radio. So we go to our introduction to radio, PPT 5, History of Radio, and I'll go through these. I'm on the second slide. We have a title page, the purpose of radio, but it may be a title page, but these are the very things you must remember about radio. The purpose of radio: to inform, to entertain, and to influence. Those are the three main purposes of radio. Moving on to slide 3, going into some more detail on the purposes. Its low cost made it ubiquitous. It was a medium of mass communication that eventually just about everybody had. And many people had it in the beginning too. But I want to make one point that you are going to learn about every form of mass communication technology that we see come down the pike, is that there will be things in it that are wonderful and things about it that are not so wonderful. When the handheld calculators came out, my husband had to have the first one because his friend told him he had to have the first one. These are those little calculators that you can get at Walmart for about $4.49, $3.99, in that price range, okay? $4 basically. When it first came out, it was a little bit larger than what we have today. Well, it was quite a bit larger. It looked like well, it looked like a phone, but actually was a little bit larger than our phones, and it cost $70. And I'm talking about in the 1970s, it cost $70. That was a lot of money, but it was a miracle. In your hand, you could calculate anything in seconds. You could, and I mean really, really detailed calculations for any kind of, engineering, any kind of math. It was fabulous, okay? But it was large and it was expensive. And therefore, the expense made it not available to everybody. It was used in rural areas for agricultural reports. We in the Midwest where I grew up, they would use radios to talk about the weather. And it was used worldwide as an emergency broadcast system for hurricanes, severe storms, natural disasters, and military conflict. Can you think of why this would be more a function of radio than of television? Now think about radio, think about television, and what those two things need for operation. Think of the car radio to imagine all of the functions of radio. What senses do we use? Do we use our sense of smell? Do we use vision? Do we use hearing? And our other two or three senses that we have? Think about radio in those terms. Slide 4. So we're going to start out here with the people who were dabbling in it. Heinrich Hertz. And we're not talking about Hertz as in Hertz rent-a-car. We're talking about Hertz as in megahertz. If you talk about computers, the speed of computers, the speed of sound. People doubted his discovery would have any practical uses. Even he was worried that his discovery would not have any practical uses. Broadcasting is the act of transmitting sound or images by radio or television. Now, what we will say about Hertz is that without his discovery, we could not have radio or television. Does that make him the father of radio and television? I don't know. I want you to think about that. Many people claim to be the father of radio in the late 1800s and early 1900s, but no one figure has that distinct title as agreed upon by the world. The world does not agree upon who was the father of radio. Heinrich Hertz demonstrated the existence of radio waves, in 1885, setting the stage for the development of modern wireless communications. The measurement unit of electromagnetic frequencies was named for Hertz. On to slide 5. Another famous character in the history of radio is Nathan Stubblefield. Sounds like perhaps he had invented the razor for getting rid of that stubble field. Nathan Stubblefield was a recluse, meaning he was like a hermit. He did not want to socialize with people. He lived by himself in Kentucky in the 1890s. He used an induction system to broadcast speech and music within a 5 or 6 mile radius. He first demonstrated his wireless telephone publicly in 1892, but did not patent his invention until 16 years later. One of the great mysteries for historians is why he waited so long. Patent was extremely important in the 1800s. We have some patents that were maybe like Stubblefield's eventually. Maybe people would have thought it wasn't that important. But there are patents from the 1800s that ended up being worth billions and trillions of dollars. So when some of these people invented what they invented, even they did not see all the practical uses of what they had invented. It was really quite interesting in those days. slide 6. Here's another fellow who is huge in broadcasting, huge in radio, and that is Marconi. Guglielmo Marconi. You just have to remember Marconi, okay? Big name. In 1899, this Italian, Marconi, invented radio telegraphy, or what he called was the wireless telegraph. Interesting. He staged a giant open demonstration of his wireless transmission invention. He is most credited as being the father of radio because he was a master of marketing and the world found out about his system. His most publicized experiment was the simultaneous transmission and reception of a transatlantic signal, meaning the signal went across the Atlantic Ocean. It went from Italy to America. So think about that a second. Think about this point about marketing, because it's very important. In that world, people didn't find out about things easily. First of all, we didn't have radio yet. We had telegraph, and here was Marconi's version of the telegraph. But if you didn't promote yourself and your discovery or your invention, the news didn't get around. Nobody knew about you because it took so long for news to get around the world. We'll stop here and continue in a minute.